This morning I'm talking to Phil Grant from Nexia ASR, a partner there. Good morning, Phil.
Hi Fiona, how are you going?
I'm well, thank you. I was wanting to talk today about how you can go about structuring, from a financial point of view, an intellectual property business, because I know you have some thoughts and have been really firm with David and I about making sure our intellectual property is protected and isn't just clumped in with the general day-to-day business of what we do. What's the first thing you should think about when you structure a business that has significant intellectual property within it?
Yeah, look, structuring generally is specific to individual circumstances, but as a general rule, when we're advising on structure, we consider a number of issues. We consider how we want the income, when it eventually flows, how we want it to be managed, and then ultimately, and then also taxed.
Yep.
So we always look for some tax efficiency because that's critically important. You have to look at things like research and development, tax concessions, as to whether certain structures work. Typically, companies are the only way you can manage that with R&D, and often for a lot of particularly startup businesses where they are doing research and development in a particular area, you need to make sure that you've managed that, because that's a big part of the funding that goes behind a business. You then also have to look at, well, what's the aim? What's your aim in terms of the end play? Do you want to sell this business? Do you want to hold it for perpetuity? What do we think the value will be? Because then ultimately that will determine how we want to structure it from a capital gain perspective. Again, tax comes into that notion. And then, as you alluded to before, asset protection. You're going to really identify what is the essence of your business, and you want to try and protect that from any commercial and trading risks associated with your business. So there are sort of those 3 or 4 things that we need to consider in any structure. And typically, you would have your intellectual property in a separate vehicle, and typically that would probably be a company that you would put it into. Not necessarily, but typically it would be a company. And then you'll have your trading business in a separate structure. And again, depending on the circumstances, it might be a company, it might be a trust. There could be variations to that. And you also need to be clear on where we're earning our revenue. Are we earning it in Australia? Are we earning it overseas somewhere? So we need to be clear on, what we call cross-border issues, and they're largely tax-related issues. But in essence, from a commercial perspective, yes, the IP, I think, should be in a separate vehicle. That vehicle can license the IP back to the business or to third-party users. You might have a model where that IP is actually just licensed out to other people out in the marketplace. That's very nice. That generates a strong income stream, which perhaps can be sold in the future. So that adds to because ultimately, I guess, in valuing your business, you're valuing future cash flows, and so a license fee is a future cash flow. So we often look at those things and make sure that that they're separated appropriately, and then you then have to look at the layers down and who are the shareholders, and that often comes down to personal circumstances of the proprietors, and whether you're looking to raise more equity, and what sort of vehicle provides that mechanism, and are you looking to list on the stock exchange? That often predicates the structure also, and so all those things need to be considered really in advance, and it's a hard one because when you've got an idea and often you don't have a lot of money,
you're not sure where it's going to go.
You're not sure where it's going to end up, and you don't often want to go and spend a massive amount of money building this Rolls-Royce structure, which for something which might not end up being that Rolls-Royce, because that's what happens. But I think there are certain fundamentals you need to do, and ultimately those fundamentals aren't all that costly. And I think as long as you manage those appropriately, I think it gives you enough flexibility and opportunity to maximise the end outcomes if in fact that business is highly successful, and it manages and it enables you to be able to capture as much value in your hand, perhaps when you sell or when you earn a nice income stream off it.
A recent case that really fascinated me was the case of eBay and Skype, where eBay several years ago bought Skype, and I thought they would have bought the intellectual property rights as well, but clearly the founders held on to those and had refused in recent times to renew the license for eBay to continue to use the Skype software. And so eBay was in a situation where it very soon wouldn't be able to use the software and ended up selling the business. And I think the founders were part of a buyback, I believe. I mean, they certainly structured their business to their best interest, didn't they?
Well, obviously had an eye for the future, which is very, very interesting. But I mean, look, that's interesting in itself. I mean, eBay bought a business. Presumably, they knew what they were buying. Presumably, they had a license agreement for the IP, so they knew they didn't buy the IP. But obviously, they didn't put enough rigour behind, the transaction to make sure that they were capturing the value and ensuring that they had, a license arrangement, at least if they hadn't bought the IP, a license arrangement which gave them longevity. And for whatever reason, that didn't happen. And so that was an unfortunate consequence. But obviously the Skype guys were clever in the way that they built that business, and also clever in the way they structured that business. So well done.
That is a good case,
That's
isn't
a great outcome. But look, that just calls to the detail. And again, that's, I guess, the lesson to be learnt there to a purchaser of something which is valuable is you need to make sure that you know what you're buying, and that if you're looking to generate some value and adding some value to it, you don't want to add value to something which you don't really control. So you've got to make sure that you know what you're buying, and if you're not buying the IP, that's reflected in the purchase price. Now, I don't know what the numbers were, but hopefully that was reflected in the purchase price. But if you say that the original Skype guys bought it back, I'm sure they did it right buying it back too.
Thank you for your time today, Phil.
Thanks, Fiona.